In this video, we will show you how to replace your power steering reservoir on this Acura MDX. This will be located along the passenger side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do to remove the power steering reservoir is to remove as much of the fluid from inside of it as possible. To do this, we'll use a fluid extraction tool. Remove the cap from the reservoir. We'll get our tool down inside here, remove as much of that fluid as possible, and recycle it as necessary. After doing that, for good measure, I'm just going to reinstall the cap. Now we're going to talk about each one of the two hoses here. To remove these, it's fairly simple, but to be able to gain access to the forward one, it's a lot easier if you were to remove the engine cover. To remove the engine cover, use a flathead screwdriver. Along each side on the front of the engine cover, you're going to find that you have a flathead screw that you can turn a quarter turn, and you can unlock these. Once they're unlocked, lift it up and out of position and set it aside. Now we can start removing the hoses. Before you do that, you want to keep in mind that there could still be power steering fluid inside of the hoses or even a little bit at the bottom of the reservoir. Either way, we need to make sure none of that power steering fluid makes its way onto the serpentine belt. That can cause an issue. You can either put a collection receptacle under here or use an absorbent pad. I'm going to use a pad. Now I essentially have this cup so it'll collect the fluid for me and absorb it. Let's continue on with squeezing on the clamp and pulling the hose off of the power steering reservoir. I'll be using some long nose pliers for this. Squeeze on that clamp, slide it out of the way. If it feels as though your clamp is rotted and weak, you definitely want to replace it. This one feels fine. To separate the hose from the reservoir, you can use an angled pick. Just be careful not to cause any damage to your hose, of course. You are reusing the hose. You can use your hands, pull this off, or just use a small prying device. Once again, there is going to be fluid in this area. There we are. Just try to tilt this up. That'll prevent as much as possible from coming out of there. Let's get the smaller hose here, same process. Squeeze the clamp, slide it out of the way, quick inspection of course, and then we'll get the hose off of here as well. Just a quick inspection of that hose. Take hold of the power steering reservoir and lift it up and out of the engine compartment. There it is, friend. Now it's time to install our brand new power steering reservoir. Before we get it in position, you have this area along the outboard side of the reservoir that will go into the bracket which is attached to the body of the vehicle. After aligning this and pressing it into position, we'll continue on to each of the two hoses. Press it in, make sure it's completely locked in. We'll start with the smaller of the two hoses. Go ahead and take hold of that. We'll press it all the way up against the reservoir as far as possible. Once you've done that, it's time for the clamp. We'll squeeze it and put it in the original position. Double check, make sure you can see hose on both sides. If you've gone off too far, it's possible the clamp won't hold the hose and it might potentially fall off, which could be very dangerous. Same process for the larger hose. We'll take hold of this, slide it onto the reservoir, and reinstall that clamp. Try to get this into the original position, just like the other one. Confirming I can see hose on both sides, a light tug on both those hoses. At this point, we don't need the collection receptacle from underneath these lines. You can remove that. Continuing on, it's time for our engine cover. That's going to sit right up along the top of the engine. The areas that we want to pay attention to are the mounting points. You should find that you have 2 rubber grommets. And then as you make your way to the front, you have the area with the metal bracket for each one of those screws. Let's get this cover in position here. We're trying to align the little tabs with their rubber grommets. The screws should align as well. Once you do have it properly aligned, go ahead and press it in. All right, the back side's pressed in. Now it's time for the front. For these, you just want to take them a quarter turn to lock them down. We'll give this a light tug, make sure it's properly secured. The next thing we have to do is fill the power steering reservoir with the manufacturer's specified fluid. You need to make sure you're using the proper stuff, otherwise you're going to have an issue with the power steering system. We'll go ahead and open up that cap. Now, since this is a small port, we're going to use a funnel so we can easily pour this in. What we're paying attention to is along the side of the reservoir, you can see several lines. We want to be in between the upper and the lower area here, preferably up close to the upper, but not above it. Got our manufacturer specified fluid here. We'll remove our funnel, install our cap. At this point, what you need to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle. Let it run for a short while and turn the wheel from side to side. When this is happening, you also need to pay attention to your power steering reservoir, ensuring that you don't have air bubbles making their way out. When that happens, fluid will make its way down, so you need to continually top off the fluid. At the end, just make sure you're just below that upper level there, close the cap, and close your hood. Take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.